After 34 years, the fire training officer for the Hyannis Fire Department is retiring. Hello, I'm Len Gobeil for Barnstable Today. We're in the fire prevention office of Lieutenant John Chase. And Don, you're going to be retiring quite shortly. Very soon there's going to be a new building, hopefully. Right across the way from us over here. That's going to be a major change in the way fire prevention is taking place and the way the whole Hyannis Fire Department is operated, isn't it?
As far as prevention, it'll make our job a lot easier.
Talk to me, please. You've been here now 34 years and you're about to retire as a young man. What are some of the major changes that you've seen in the Hyannis Fire Department?
Well, just the number of calls, the number of staff that we have on. When I first started, there were only 6 people on the shift,
Wow.
including the dispatcher, so there was 5 people on the floor, so we could do one call before we had to call in backup. So now we have 12. When we first started, we still have the same building. So those 6 people were accommodated very well, but now there's 12 people in the space of 6.
Per shift?
Per shift. So
And there are 3 shifts per day?
4 shifts.
4 shifts per day.
And it's an 8-day cycle. So we have 54 full-time staff where we used to have 24.
And you started as a call firefighter back in the day?
Yes.
How did you get into that?
My father was a call firefighter back in the 60s. When I was growing up early in the 60s, late 50s, we had the original fire station over by the police station on Elm Street. So I was small back then, and he used to shove me up the fire pole and let me slide down because I was too small to actually go down from the top. So then he retired from the fire. He was a call captain, so he retired from that. We ran the laundry right next door for 40 years plus.
Right.
He retired when I became full-time in '84.
I actually remember those days. So you graduated from Barnstable High School?
Yes.
And what happened after that?
I went to Mass Maritime, and that's where I started my trip towards the fire service, because we had a lot of first aid classes, and I became an EMT in 79, 78, somewhere around there. Became an EMT and thought this might be a pretty good line of work to pursue. Well, my father had been in the business before.
Sure. And so it's in your genes, it's in your blood.
Sort of, sure.
And it stayed there for 34 years.
Yes, it has.
How about your children? Any children interested in firefighting?
No, one boy, he's going to be a psychologist.
Well, that's kind of what you do too, isn't it?
He's at college right now.
How has the responses to various calls that you get changed? They seem to be more serious now. I don't mean that somebody get injured or cut or whatever. It's not serious, but how has that changed?
There's just a tremendous volume of calls. Before, when we just had maybe 4 or 5 calls a day, and now last Tuesday we had 12 to 14 calls between 8 and noontime. So the volume of calls has increased as the population has increased.
Right, and that of course has caused...
And that puts more demand on the people that are working here. And to try to take some of that off, you hire some more people, and we're up to the point now where we've hired all the building can fit. This is my plans review desk right here. I have no plans reviewed this, so we put them on our lap and look around, look at the plans. But things have come along. We've always had great equipment here, which is great for Hyannis. We've had great equipment. We've had great people to work with. We've had great management, and it's been fun working with the staff. And we've got a lot accomplished, I think, in the district over the last 20. Well, I've been in fire prevention for 23 years.
What is your role in fire prevention? Do you go knock on doors and say, hi, we would like to do an inspection and that wire is not good, or this isn't happening, or what is your main job?
Basically with commercial establishments, and also we have to inspect houses that are up for resale. That's one of the state requirements, is that any house that's being sold or resold has to have their smoke detectors and carbon monoxide inspected prior to the closing.
And how do you know when a house is being sold?
Uh,
Are you in communications with all the real estate
The
agents?
real estate agents come in and they take out paperwork to make an appointment to have the smoke system inspected, and then they take that paper to the closing.
Lieutenant Chase, as time has progressed, you were the fire prevention officer. How many people in your staff right now?
When we first had a fire prevention bureau, there was one. He's the deputy right now. And then we had another person, and the two of them, we went up to two, and it's been two ever since until we have a retirement. When Eric Hubler retired about 4 or 5 years ago, then I was on for a while until we got someone else, which is John Cosmo, who's the other inspector. So we usually have two as we go along to cover all hyenas.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're not on the vehicles anymore, and you don't go out on all the calls, but you spend your entire shift making sure that the village of Hyannis is safe for all the residents here by doing a lot of different things.
We still have turnout gear in our vehicles, so when push comes to shove, we can still respond with the engines. Because if there's a fire, we have to do investigative work with that. But when, when, say, 2 ambulances are out and the 3rd ambulance goes out and then they have a fire and they need a truck, then it's whoever's here goes on the truck at the time. So we still have to do, not as much granted, but we still have to do the fire work and the ambulance work as well as prevention.
So when we talk about the Hyannis Fire Department, you're still a firefighter at heart.
Yes, firefighter EMT / fire inspector. Everybody's firefighter EMT.
And for the benefit of our audience, you get paid different wages for all 3 of those.
Not really. No, I just get lieutenant's pay. But it's a lot of fun. We get to go out and meet everybody all the time, and you get to know, over the years, you get to know all the business owners, which is nice. And way back when, it was always a struggle to get people to come into compliance, and now it's like 99%. There's only 1 or 2 every year that you always have to tell. You need to get your fire extinguishers checked. You need to get your sprinkler system tested. But everybody, the philosophy here has always been, as far as the chief goes, you educate the people first, and you're more likely to get something done without any hassle to the business owner. And that's what we try to do. It's easier to teach somebody what happens if you don't do it than to just go in and yell at them and say, you do this because I said to.
Sure.
And that doesn't work anymore. You have to do this, and here's why. You take one of the code books and you say, this is why. This is what happened to your patrons if you don't do this. If you don't have your sprinkler system checked and it fails, you're not going to know until you have the fire, and you might lose somebody. So it's always a good idea. It's preventive maintenance. That's what we do.
I think, too, as you answer that question, back in the 60s and early 70s, there were people who walked into Hyannis and said, I think I'll open up a store. I think I'll open up a restaurant. I think I'll open up, and I got a little bit of money, and I'll start it, and they just did. Mm-hmm. I think today's merchants are a lot more savvy, as you say, with the code books.
Oh, right.
And they understand that this is for their protection and this is for their assistance.
Well, part of the process, I think, in getting like a business license, so they go through the town, is they say, what are we going to need? Well, that's why we have site plan review. What are we going to need? Well, we all meet together. We're an invited member of the town and site plan review. So we go through the Board of Health and engineering and the building department, and you get to the fire. Well, if you're going to do this type of business, you're going to need this protection. If you're going to run a restaurant, you're going to need a hood and suppression system.
Sure.
You're going to need a fire alarm. You're going to need fire extinguishers. But if you're going to run a bookstore, you're going to need something different.
Sure. My last question, because we're out of time, is something we were talking about a moment ago. What are you going to be wearing next Wednesday?
Well, see, that's the big dilemma. Over 40 years of my life, I've been in a uniform. So everybody around here, it's kind of a joke. What's the biggest thing on your mind? Well, the biggest thing is, what am I going to wear on Wednesday? They say, well, you wear your weekend clothes all the time now.
Don Chase, 34-year veteran of the Hyannis Fire Department. Thank you so much for talking to us on Channel 18.
Thanks.
For Barnstable Today, I'm Len Gobiel.